Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, it's very nice to meet you here. I hope you're all fine today, aren't you? And praise to God that I'm fine too. Thank you. Before we start, let me introduce myself first. My name is Dimar Sekaresti and I'm from SMIT Nur Hidayah, Surakarta. And today, I'll tell you a classic tale story with the title Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there lived in a village a little country girl, the prettiest creature who's ever seen. Her mother was excessively fond of her, and her grandmother doted on her still more. This good girl had a little Red Riding Hood made for her. It suited the girl so extremely well that everybody called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her mother having made a cake, and said to her, "Go and see what your grandmother is doing. Find her she has been very ill. Take her a cake and a little pot of butter." "Sure, Mom." "Don't forget to be careful." "Of course. Goodbye." Little Red Riding Hood set out immediately to go to see her grandmother who lived in another village. As she was going through the wood, she met with a wolf who had a very great mind to eat her up, but he dared not because of some woodcutters working nearby in the forest. He asked her where she was going. The poor girl, who didn't know that it was dangerous to stay and talk to a wolf, said to him, "Oh, I'm going to see my grandmother and carry her a cake and a little pot of butter from my mother," answered Little Red Riding Hood. "Well, does she live far off?" asked the wolf. "Oh, I say, it's beyond that mill you see there, at the first house in the village," answered Little Red Riding Hood. Well, then I'll go there too. I'll go this way and you go that, and we'll see who'll be there first." The wolf ran as fast as he could, taking the shortest path, and the little girl took a roundabout way, entertaining herself by running after butterflies and collecting buckets of little flowers. It was not long before the wolf arrived at the old woman's house and knocked at the door. "Who's there?" "Your grandchild, Little Red Riding Hood, who had brought you a cake and a little pot of butter. Mother sends you." The good grandmother, who was in bed because she was somewhat ill, cried out, "Pull the bobbin and the latch will go up." The wolf pulled the bobbin and the door opened. Then he immediately fell to the good woman and ate her up in a moment, for it'd been since 3 days since he had eaten. He then shut the door and got into the grandmother's bed, expecting Little Red Riding Hood to come afterwards sometime and knocked at the door. "Who's there?" Little Red Riding Hood, hearing the big voice of the wolf, was at first afraid, but believing her grandmother has a cold and he was hers, answered him, "It is your grandchild, Little Red Riding Hood, who had brought you a cake and a little pot of butter sent you by mother." The wolf cried out, softening his voice as much as he could, "Pull the bobbin and the latch will go up." Little Red Riding Hood pulled the bobbin and the door opened. The wolf, seeing her come in, said to her, hiding himself under the bedclothes, "Put the cake and a little pot of butter upon the stool and come get into bed with me." After she was put the cake and the butter upon the stool, she took off her clothes and and come get into the bed. She was extremely amazed to see how her grandmother looks in her night clothes and said to her, "Grandmother, what the big arms you have." "All the better to help you with, my dear." "Grandmother, what the big legs you have." "All the better to run with, my child." "Grandmother, what the big ears you have." "All the better to hear with, my child." "Grandmother, what the big eyes you have." "All the better to see with, my child." "Grandmother, what the big teeth you have got." "It's all the better to eat you up with." And after saying these words, this wicked wolf fell upon the Little Red Riding Hood and ate her all up. And that's the end of the story. But before we end this, do you know what the moral of the story is? Yeah, always be careful with strangers and all the wolves out there. Oh, and don't forget to always listen to your parents. That's all from me. Thank you for listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.